A very warm good evening. On behalf of the Association for Creative Theory and the Foundation for Creative Social Research, together with our collaborating partners, the Raza Foundation, Shanti Sahyog, the International Herbert Marcuse Society, and the India International Center, I, Varsha, warmly welcome you all to the 12th edition of the Creative Theory Colloquium. It gives me great joy to welcome and open this gathering, which for 12 years has been a space of creative and critical dialogue. This year's theme, Indian Political Theory, Possibilities and Challenges, invites us to reflect on the scope, depth, and future of political theory as it emerges from Indian contexts. We intend to make this colloquium a collective exercise in doing theory creatively, a process of conceptual reflection rooted in the diverse and contested experiences of Indian political life. Over the period of our 3-day deliberations, we aspire to look for answers to poignant questions in the field as to what kinds of political theory have been done in India, how do we identify them, and what theoretical futures are possible from within and beyond these spaces. The question is not whether a political theory in India exists, but whether and how it can become a political theory of India, a body of conceptual work that engages with universal questions from within Indian locations, languages, and contradictions. Hence, to begin the inaugural proceedings, may I first invite our patron, Professor Manoranjan Mohanty sir, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Varsha. Happy Teachers' Day. Very difficult, though, to be happy when you have flood victims, earthquake victims in Afghanistan, a continuing genocide in Gaza, and so many other adversities. But as creative beings, hope is our mainstay, and we keep struggling with hope. And I can't believe this is the 12th I was going to say grassroots politics colloquium. That was the predecessor. 25 years in Delhi University, then an interregnum, and then last 12 years, the Creative Theory Colloquium. And this hand-holding by, you must know, Foundation for Creative Social Research with India International Center, Raja Foundation, International Herbert Marcuse Society, Shanti Sahyog, and now the newly registered Association for Creative Theory. This hand-holding has been absolutely great for our continuing effort by this very interesting combination of 3 generations. I can see 3 generations present here interacting, and Varsha, our moderator and the coordinator of this whole event and the preparatory process also, because the preparatory meeting has been taking place for the last at least 3 months, if not earlier.
January, from April onwards.
Oh, from April, last April onwards. Amazing. What unites this group is, that great concept, Pariprasnena Sevaya. The best service to the guru, to the teacher, is to question, keep questioning, and Pariprasna is even more than questioning. It's a very special kind of questioning to overcome the obstacles that the teachers faced. And therefore, we keep questioning, and that discomfort with existing theories, just being anti-colonial, anti-capitalist, anti-feudal, anti-patriarchal, anti-caste, and so on, and pro-nature, etc., is not enough. How to concretize that by interconnecting and looking at the dynamic reality in history, and in present, and anticipating future. I think that brings us together, a questioning community of creative inquirers. Thank you very much. Welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. Your warm words and continued guidance has kept us motivated to continue this intellectual exercise year after year. Next, I would like to invite the President of the Association for Creative Theory and a board member of the International Herbert Marcuse Society, USA, and the convener of this year's colloquium, Professor Savita Singh ma'am, to share her welcome note and reflections on the past colloquiums. Ma'am.
Thank you, Varsha. So, Professor Mohanty has given you a glimpse of what it takes for us to organize this colloquium. I would say that, generally people think that doing theory is a very dry kind of an intellectual exercise, and it's mostly an individual endeavor. But in this group of creative theorists, we work together. It's a kind of a collective work, and everyone has equal importance. Even ideas proposed which are quite outlandish, we give thought to those ideas, and we try to see if there is any moment built into it which can be beneficial for our future theory. Obviously, creative theory is a very distinctive way of doing theory, theoretically as well as practically. And if you have looked at the program schedule that we've sent, you can see how we have created our sessions. They're very well thought out, crafted sessions. We've been doing it for last 12 years, as Professor Mohanty has told you, and we have evolved. There's always a possibility for those who are doing political theory for themselves as subjects of interpreting their societies, interpreting their practices, revaluing their concepts. There's a possibility for them to evolve. That is, it's a kind of a self-defining project. And self-definition allows you to, of course, understand the meaning of what you're doing, but also it allows you to see beyond yourself. That is to say, it is not an individualistic effort. It is located in a society which is structured in a vicious inequalities of various kinds. So, the notion that we have is that there are a number of layers in our efforts to understand our society, because we understand political theory is about understanding our social practices, but how we do it step by step. So, the moment of inwardness, that is to say, understanding the meaning of our own context, then struggling with your own context, its problems, its complexities, then trying to transcend that one and come up with an intellectual exercise and social exercise that allows you to change things. Creativity basically is not about self-satisfaction or perfection. It is about transformation. All artists in the world, even intellectual artists, the ones that have made mark in the world, they've had this dream that they are creating a better society where everyone is living in the light of their own aspirations. It's kind of a freedom of a different order. So anyway, when we plan our colloquium, we think, we argue months and months of arguments, and then we come to a consensus, obviously. So, for example, last year we deliberated on technology and society. Before that, I think we deliberated on future of thinking. As the political and social situations are developing in our country, we're trying to reflect on them. That is to say, it's not an idle kind of exercise or work. It is very much rooted in our social reality, and we have a perspective on caste, class, social movements, patriarchy, capitalism, socialism, and yet we are looking at how to do it within our own context so that it helps us to understand our society better. So there is a possibility for us to have a notion of Indian political theory, which we are deliberating today. This was something that we wanted to come to, and we were preparing for last 12 years to come to this stage where we can talk about Indian political theory. And we have some extraordinary people here who are going to be talking. Rajiv Bhargav, Gurpreet Mahajan, Yogendra, I think, will be joining. They have done their bit in a significant manner, and that is why they matter to us, and that is why they are here. Professor Mohanty, I'm doing a book in which I have tried to say that he is one of the initiators of this way of critical thinking, which is the ongoing thinking towards improvement, towards more and more transcendence, towards more and more concretization, etc., etc. So it's a tough job that we do, and I feel particularly very happy that so many people have come to share this. It was also necessary for me to share the hard work that goes into making a colloquium like this, where our students, extremely brilliant students, you wouldn't like our students to suffer in future because our polity is losing hope to create a future for our younger people. This is very, very dismaying, I would say, disturbing. So given the situation that we are in, we're trying to understand how to theorize so that we can say that we do theorize in India, and we do have a discipline called Indian political theory. And I think it's ambitious, but when you listen to all these people, you'll see that a lot of work has already been done. And that is why we've come here, to have an exhaustive view of what we have done so far, what we are doing now, and what we can do in the future. So with these words, I would very much like to thank my friends in creative theory, particularly Manoranjan Thakur, who's a co-convener of the colloquium, and we've worked very hard along with our students and other members. Now, I must say, I'll take just only 2 minutes to talk about the coming of our institutionalization of our colloquium, which we did for last, 10 years without any formal body. But now we are registered as a body. It's called Association for Creative Theory, and we have advisory bodies, we have general bodies, we have different levels of members who are associated with us, and we don't have a bank account as yet, so we just work on donations and all that. And the person who helps very much is sitting with us. Shri Ashok Vajpeyi, Raza Foundation, has been very generous, supporting us financially, at least taking care of our food, taking care of our posters. We have no money to organize such a grand thing. It's because of him. We did try to get some money from International Herbert Marcuse Society, and I have to admit that that money has been frozen by the government. So we have whatever we have, and in that we have enough, because we have so many people coming with their good wishes and their brilliant minds. The last thing that I want to say is that with all these years that we have been working with a number of extraordinary scholars, we have been feeling stronger, in the sense that we have planned a series of publications which is called Creative Theory Series. We published with Palgrave books by our own students, brilliant dissertations that they have written, other research work. And now I think we are also going to start a series with Routledge. And the first book will be coming early next year. It will be edited by Dr. Manoranjan Thakur, which is on the Indian knowledge systems, which we must reflect ourselves critically, because others who are reflecting, they're making a mess of it. So we have to do our own way of thinking. And I think a creative theory group of individuals basically are doing a critical work and creative work. And I think we will be doing this mapping We will have more books coming into this series. I will put my own books also in it, which is going to be one on modernity, and one on Professor Mohanty's writings, a collected volume, collected papers, also another book on Indian feminism. So all these things are going on. It's an ongoing process of achievement, of hard work, and a great hope that no matter what, we will do better as a country, as a society, and it will be a fair society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Singh, for those words of guidance and leading us into this year's deliberations. As you rightly mentioned, we are extremely grateful to our collaborators whose support sustains this colloquium year after year. So may I invite Shri Ashok Vajpeyi, an eminent poet and trustee of the Raza Foundation, to kindly address us.
Well, friends, we in the Raza Foundation have been extremely happy to help this endeavor over the years. In fact, we had some account problem because our mandate did not really provide for. So I got the trustee the mandate to include ideas so that we can support events like this. So we are very happy to have supported this over the years, and we hope as you continue, we also continue to support you. Well, I'm a poet and I'm acutely aware of the fact that I speak from the edge of utter irrelevance. But I take heart from two verbs which have been used. That is to question and to create. We poets suffer from the delusion that we also question and sometimes we also create. At one time, theory in literature was a very, became such a thing that it became the main critical discourse. It dominated and it became almost autonomous. It became so autonomous and so concerned with itself that it seemed to have forgotten that there was literature it was supposed to be talking about. So there was this autonomy in a very strange sense, made it dominate the critical discourse, and then happily it disappeared. I mean, it had at least... so we have, as you know, post-theory, we have post-truth, we have post-postmodernism. So would there be also a post-political theory? That might be a question to be asked. But since this time it is centered on Indian political theory, what is the situation at the moment? We have a poetics of cruelty. We seem to enjoy cruelty as a spectacle, as participants, as viewers. We have a lure and love of violence. We have, of course, the famous phrase from Hannah Arendt, banality of evil. We have the joyous spectacle of lynching and bulldozing. We also have festivals turning into bloody riots. We have shrinking and freezing of empathy and conscience. We have the outdatedness of instruments of justice. We have the powerful regimes of lies. We have democratic ethos thriving on majoritarianism, suppressing all dissent and opposition. We have the growing urban class, urban chaos, and Delhi at the moment is a testimony to that. absence of civility in public discourse. The collapse of constitutional and liberal values. We have institutionalization of amnesia. We have the warm welcome. We are offering warm welcome and making welcome doors, gates for barbarians in the city. The push to locate all creativity, it seems, from literature, arts, philosophy to technology. The epic collapse resulting in a global void in the realm of ideas. Ideas that ennoble, uplift, civilize, and humanize. We have widening belief that the world can be changed by things, not by ideas. Pursuit of knowledge itself is under assault and devaluation. I could also mention the colossal damage to ecology, the marginalization of the individual, the conversion of society into market, the vast upsurge of shallow religiosity, and the desacralization of the sacred. The camaraderie of silence and cowardice. Can there be a political theory which can explain, analyze, trace these aspects of our polity, society, and state and suggest a way out from this gruesome reality? There's always a gap between theory and reality. But we seem to be at a point where reality seems to be destroying all theory, in a manner of speaking. These are wild ideas of a mad poet. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
May I now invite Professor Andrew T Lamas, Senior Professor in the University of Pennsylvania and a board member of the International Herbert Marcuse Society. He is joining us online from US.
Good. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here. On this day marking the appreciation of teachers, I would like to share with you the most inspiring and instructive exchange between a teacher and a student that I have ever encountered. It is not a letter that a student has written to a teacher, but rather a letter that the great philosopher Herbert Marcuse wrote in 1970 to his remarkable student, then the 26-year-old Angela Davis. For background, you will recall that at this moment, the Vietnam War was raging, students were marching, the women's movement, the gay rights movement, the environmental movement, the Black Power movement were ascendant, and the repressive apparatus of the state was in full gear. Marcuse had been unfairly removed from his teaching position at the University of California by the state's right-wing governor, none other than Ronald Reagan, who was later to become the President of the United States. And Angela Davis had been unjustly arrested and imprisoned by the US government. Here is a portion of the letter that Marcuse wrote to his imprisoned student. Dear Angela, you were my student in philosophy, and I taught philosophy. Your thesis was to be on a problem in Kant, Immanuel Kant. What does your life for the liberation of Black people What does your present plight have to do with the philosophy of German idealism? Then I took out the prospectus you wrote for your thesis, and I read the following sentence. You wrote, "The notion in Kant that force provides the link between the theory and practice of freedom leads back to Rousseau." Back to Marcuse now. So there is a link, he writes to Angela, an internal link between the theory and practice, between the concept and the reality, or rather realization of freedom. And I remember that I criticized Sartre's notion, Jean-Paul Sartre. I remember that I criticized Sartre's notion of a freedom which is truly inalienable and can be practiced even in prison, even in a concentration camp. Namely, the freedom to refuse submission, the freedom to reject the false identity which the masters impose on their slaves. I criticized this notion because it seemed to me that the free choice between slavery and death or life imprisonment is not freedom, that it makes a mockery of human freedom. And now I read in your lecture how one day, and this again is Angela's words, Frederick Douglass, the great abolitionist of the 19th century, a formerly enslaved man, Frederick Douglass gathers the courage to resist the slave breaker to whom he is sent for domestication, for taming, the slave breaker who is infinitely more brutal than any of his previous masters. Frederick Douglass one day hits back, Marcuse writes. He fights the slave breaker with all his force, and the slave breaker does not hit back. He stands trembling. He calls other slaves to help, and they refuse. The abstract philosophical concept of a freedom which can never be taken away suddenly comes to life and reveals its very concrete truth. Freedom is not only the goal of liberation, it begins with liberation. It is there to be practiced. This, I confess, I learned from you, he says to Angela. Strange? No, I don't think so. There is more to it. Years ago, we had a seminar on Hegel. We read, among other texts, the famous chapter on the dialectic of master and slave in the phenomenology of mind. It ends with the recognition of the master's dependence on the slave, which outweighs the slave's dependence on the master. In your lecture, you discuss the phenomenology, and Hegel's philosophical analysis comes to life in the struggle in which the black slave establishes his own identity and thereby destroys the violent power of the master. I skip a section and then Marcuse continues. I do know that you, Angela, are deeply involved in the fight for the black people, for the oppressed everywhere, and that you cannot limit your work for them to the classroom and to writing. And I think there is an inner logic in your development and in the development of things, a logic which is not so difficult to understand. The world in which you grew up, your world, not mine, was one of cruelty, misery, and persecution. To recognize these facts did not require much intelligence and sophistication, but to realize that they could be changed and must be changed required thinking, critical thinking, knowledge of how these conditions came about, which forces perpetuated them, and of the possibilities of freedom and justice. This, I believe, you learned in your years of study, and you learned something else, namely that almost all the celebrated figures of Western civilization, the very civilization which enslaved your people, were in the last analysis concerned with one thing: human freedom. Like any good student, you took seriously what they said, and you thought seriously about it, and why all this had remained mere talk for the vast majority of men and women. So you felt that the philosophical idea, unless it was a lie, must be translated into reality. That it contained a moral imperative to leave the classroom, to leave the campus, and to go and help the others, your own people to whom you still belong, in spite of, or perhaps because of, your success within the white establishment. But you fought for us too, who need freedom and who want freedom for all who are still unfree. In this sense, your cause is our cause. And he ended in solidarity, Herbert Marcuse. So then, the commitment to solidarity shared by Herbert Marcuse and Angela Davis is grounded in the affirmation of our common humanity amidst our differences, and in the necessity of a common freedom struggle. Now let me come to my closing remarks, intended as a comradely provocation. One thing I know for certain is that what you call Indian political theory is not only for Indians. But I want to follow this thread a bit farther and propose that Indian political theory is not Indian, or at least not only Indian. Is it critical? Yes. Is it creative? Yes. Is it anti-colonial and anti-imperialist? Yes, and yes. But rather than Indian political theory, I prefer to think of political theory from India. Of course, the political project of universalism, like the best of our music and poetry and religion, is always anchored in specific places and historical situations. But we know that the kind of liberation that is needed demands linkages across time and space. And we know that every universalist project in the past has unfortunately been marked by exclusions, privileges, and erasures. And so this is a tendency that we must vigilantly work to overcome. I believe that nothing I have said could have been said if not for the contributions of Gandhi and Ambedkar, Nkrumah and Fanon, W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Luther King, Marx, Marcuse, and Angela Davis. In my view, they understood that the project of universalism, as fraught as it always has been, is a way forward, is the way forward. No genuine solidarity is possible without the commitment to forge right relations with all those with whom we share the earth. It is the responsibility of intellectuals, scholars and artists, organizers and agitators to never let go of this commitment to radical universalism, a universalism that rejects racial essentialism, national essentialism, colonialism, and imperialism. Thank you to the Creative Theory Colloquium with which the Marcuse Society is honored to be associated. Thank you, Shanti Sahayog, the Raza Foundation, and the India International Center. And thank you, as always, to Professors Mohanty, Singh, and Thakur. Thank you all.
Added richness and depth to the spirit of welcome today. We are deeply thankful to Professor Lamas for his thoughtful reflections and for setting the spirit of collaboration with which we begin this colloquium. Our sincere thanks to Shri Ashok Vajpeyi, whose gracious words and constant encouragement continue to guide and inspire this initiative. We are equally grateful to Professor Savita Singh for a warm welcome and for reminding us of the critical conversations that lie at the heart of this gathering. With this, now the time has come to officially begin the colloquium proceedings with our inaugural panel titled Debating Indian Politics.